Well, hello there. Do hope you're all well. Um, One thing I always do enjoy is listening to Abbot on a Sunday as well, because I know he has his show. But what I really do enjoy when he has his little conversations with American correspondent Simon Marks, and like last week they had the conversation about the leaked tapes, which was all very interesting and showed you the sort of a type of man Donald Trump is. Well, this week they go on about what happened in Capitol Hill, and I found this conversation really, really interesting for two reasons. Simon Marks go through the options that are available for the Democrats and the Senate and whoever else, but also the interview clearly goes longer than what it should have done because there's just a hell of a lot to take in, and this is how it goes. Enjoy.
Well, I can remember when politics used to be boring. How about you, Simon?
Do you remember, Nick, a week ago we were all getting terribly excited because Donald Trump had been taped making that phone call to the good people of Georgia and telling the Republicans there that he needed them to go out and find another 11,000 votes, and we thought it was a big story.
Yes. This is Simon Marks, LBC's US correspondent in Washington, D.C. Oh, my God, my head is spinning. Where do we even begin? OK,
well,
hang on a minute. Let me ask you a question first,
you go for
and
it.
then you can do your thing. Right, so Nancy Pelosi is likely to start a second impeachment process tomorrow, but until the takeover after the Biden inauguration, the Senate is still dominated by Republicans. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. There'll be the change after the inauguration and the new Senate gets sworn in. That's correct. And
right.
The Democrats will be 50-50 then with the Republicans.
And so in a tie, and let's assume that everybody still votes regardless of the issue, dependent on which party they're in a tie, the vice president will then decide, and that will be Kamala Harris for the Democrats. So why are people saying that they won't get this through the Senate because the Republicans will throw it out?
Because in the Senate, for a president to be convicted at his impeachment trial, or, as Donald Trump will be by then, an ex-president, that still requires a two-thirds majority. So you've still got to come up with 67 votes, which will require, obviously, some Republicans to bail on Donald Trump and vote to convict him. Now, it is possible that might happen by the time we get to a Senate trial, which now looks like it's going to be a very long way off. I mean, here's the way things currently stand. Tomorrow, the House of Representatives, where the Democrats have a majority, will immediately pass a resolution, outcome of that is not in doubt, calling on Mike Pence, the Vice President of the United States, to invoke the 25th Amendment to the American Constitution and force Donald Trump from power.
Right, so what is the 25th Amendment?
The 25th Amendment is the bit of the Constitution that if a president, for example, goes into hospital and has to have an anaesthetic for a short period of time, that allows power to be temporarily transferred to the Vice President. It's been used for that in the past, but there is one section of the 25th Amendment that has never been used. It's Section 4, and it's the section that exists in the case that the president is mad. And it allows the Vice President of the United States, a majority of cabinet members and leaders in Congress, both the Democrats and the Republicans, the majority and minority leaders, to come together and say, OK, the president has completely lost his mind. We now need to move in and tell him that he's no longer president of the United States. Mike Pence, it seems, does not want to go down that road, and one of the reasons, you and I talked about it a couple of nights ago, is because he's not going to get the support that he needs from Donald Trump's cabinet, not least because Donald Trump's cabinet is falling apart faster than a bit of self-assembly furniture, and there aren't enough people in it anymore, really, to put together that kind of majority, even if Mike Pence was so minded, and he doesn't seem so minded to advance it. So the House of Representatives tomorrow says, right, Mike Pence, invoke the 25th Amendment, That's our view. Then they immediately are going to get on with the business of impeaching Donald Trump, who will become, without question, the only president in American history ever to have been impeached twice. Because remember, impeachment occurs in the House of Representatives where the Democrats have a majority. So, let's say they begin those impeachment proceedings Tuesday. By Wednesday night, Thursday at the latest, Donald Trump will have been impeached again. At that point, the next stage of the drama ought to move to the Senate. But with only 9 days left before Joe Biden becomes president, the Democrats themselves are saying, let's be reasonable here, let's be realistic about the time frame. Maybe we should wait for that trial until after the first 100 days of Joe Biden's government. So nothing detracts from the attention that Joe Biden, the House of Representatives and the Senate need to pay to dealing with COVID-19, the economic crisis, the vaccine rollout catastrophe here. Let's get through 100 days of that, and then maybe we'll have a trial of former President Donald Trump in a bid to see if we can convict him at trial, which would obviously be out of power by then, so he wouldn't be ousted from the presidency because he would have been long gone by then. But conviction would mean that he could never run for public office again. Right. There's one other option here, which is that they never bring him up for trial in the Senate, and that the Senate soon tries to pass a resolution censuring Donald Trump and banning him from ever running for public office again. That's a very attractive possibility for some Republicans in the Senate, because even those Republicans who have been cautious about handling all of this, some of them are themselves thinking about running for the presidency in 2024. And to get Donald Trump out of the way might be an attractive thing to do, especially if it obviated the need for the full trial. So lots of uncertainty here. The one thing that's absolutely certain is that in the coming week, Donald Trump will become the first US president ever to have been impeached twice.
Right. Am I right in thinking that the lily-livered liberals of the Democratic Party will agree with that slime ball from the southern states, Lindsey Graham?
You'll have to be more specific. Oh.
There it is, Lindsey Graham, that, we can't go ahead and attack poor Donny now for the benefit of the country. We want to bring the country together. Oh, my God, it was such a swift pivot and entirely predictable, too. The Republican Party are now saying, don't attack Donald Trump now because we really want to bring the country together. And it seems to me that that is exactly what the sort of thing that the Democrats would do. Is there anything in that?
Well, there is something in that, and frankly, that's sort of what we've been hearing from President-elect Joe Biden, who, on the one hand, has been furious, of course, about the deadly violence that was incited by Donald Trump on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, which has now left 6 people dead, following the death of another member of the Capitol Hill police force here announced tonight. But on the other hand, Joe Biden keeps saying, look, it's up to Congress to decide how to handle this. I've got my hands full. I've got to worry about COVID-19. I've got to worry about the economy. I've got to worry about the vaccines. So he is pretending in a sense that he's an observer to all of this. I think there will be those Democrats out there who say, hang on a second, the President of the United States has just engaged in demonstrably egregious and criminal conduct by inciting a riot, a deadly riot, against the cradle of American democracy. How is it possible that anyone, especially the President-elect of the United States, doesn't think something ought to happen about that very, very quickly? But it's notable that Joe Biden is not out there saying, I want him gone, I'd like Mike Pence to be a caretaker. He's very much adopting a much cooler approach to all of this and sort of leaving it to Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives and Charles Schumer in the Senate to carry all the water. I would also just point out that of all the television appearances that were made today, and of course it was Sunday, so we had the big Sunday TV talk shows here, the most extraordinary appearance was made by Roy Blunt, a Republican from Missouri, who actually was the MC of Donald Trump's inauguration back in 2016. who, in trying to explain why it wasn't necessary to impeach and turf Donald Trump out of office, said, well, you know, he's touched the hot stove, and now he's going to learn his lesson and he won't touch the hot stove again. As though this was a 6-year-old in the kitchen who had made a mistake and wouldn't do it again.
They keep doing that. I mean, every time Donald Trump makes a speech where he doesn't yell about locking up Hillary Clinton, the media fall over themselves about it being a new tone. He's become the president now.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that this weekend.
If this was a film, the audience would be yelling at the screen, "The monster's not dead yet," because there's 15 minutes left in the running time to the film. It happens in every single film. You think you've killed the monster or the shark or whatever it might be, but the shark's not dead yet. And if they don't do it, if they don't bury him up to his eyeballs in legal issues and lawsuits and so on, if they don't make absolutely certain that he is utterly denuded, he will come back and bite their faces off, won't he?
He used to say, as you know, that he could murder someone on Fifth Avenue, shoot them dead at high noon and not be touched for it. And that felt like hyperbole.
He wouldn't lose a single vote, and that's true.
But here we are, and he's incited a riot that has ransacked the U.S. Capitol, left 6 people dead. Even today, the president of law and order, the man who really prides himself on his relationship with police forces all over the country, had to be browbeaten into flying the flag at the White House at half-mast. And it only was just lowered a few hours ago in memory of the police officers who died on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. Long after the flags all over Washington at the congressional buildings had been lowered. So there's obviously been a huge ruck behind the scenes at the White House over that. He is going to head off tomorrow, apparently, to Texas on a bit of a victory tour, he thinks, in a bid to try and cement his presidential legacy and remind everybody of his achievements, including, of course, his false claim that he has built a wall between the United States and Mexico.
This is Alamo, isn't it? Is this another Four Seasons thing? Because
no, he's not.
Is he thinking he's going to the Alamo?
Sure.
But he's not. He's going to a tiny town in the middle of nowhere called Alamo, isn't he?
There was a lot of excitement here because it was felt that he was going to go to, it was announced, we all believed he was going to go to the Alamo in San Antonio, which, of course, is the moment when Mexican troops put down an attempt by Texas settlers to try and declare independence. It was a huge loss at the time for those in Texas seeking independence. They subsequently, of course, vanquished the Mexicans in another battle. But this idea that he was going to go to the Alamo, scene of a sort of a famous last stand in American military history, was extraordinary to people here. And then we discovered, no, he's not going to the Alamo. He's going to a tiny town 200 miles south of the Alamo that happens to be called Alamo. I mean, I wonder if he's going to show up at an Alamo car rental place, because there's a big car rental business here called Alamo. But it did have absolute echoes of Four Seasons Total Landscaping.
Yeah.
The idea that he can leave Washington, we're told that he's planning to release yet another video, apparently, and speak for himself at some point over the course of the next day or so. And he doesn't want to focus on what happened at the Capitol last week. He really wants now to try and put the Klieg lights on his achievements.
Yes, neither does the Republican Party. I mean, they're having some sort of conference at the moment, aren't they? What is that that's going on?
Well, the Republican National Committee had its big meeting and re-elected the woman, Ronna McDaniel, the woman who's been this fervent Trump supporter at the head of the RNC for another 2-year term.
Wasn't she unopposed?
Yes, correct, absolutely, of course.
And both at that convention and his other enablers, they haven't jumped ship at all. They keep praising him. They keep telling us about his legacy and that essentially that he should still be running the show. I mean, this is the Donald Trump did what he did is not a surprise. It is, in fact, entirely predictable. That the Republican Party have become his pets, essentially, his lapdogs, is a bit surprising. It was surprising when he just bowled in and took over. You know, this clown off the telly took over the most powerful and richest political party on earth, and he did it instantly and without complaint. But that they're still with him? How?
We have even seen here one Republican lawmaker, I think from South Carolina, I can't quite remember the state, but I think it's from South Carolina, who has put out a fundraising email to supporters over the weekend based around the fact that she participated in the riot and the occupation of the U.S. Capitol building. They're fundraising off the back of this thing. And that is what constrains so many Republicans up on Capitol Hill who look at the fact that Donald Trump won 74 million votes, that many of these supporters of his not only insist that what they did at the Capitol last Wednesday was justified, but that they are coming back to finish the job. Some of them said they were coming back as early, I think, as the 17th of January, ahead of the inauguration on January the 20th. Even the U.S. Department of Defense today, in disseminating a memo that in detail described for the press how the Pentagon had responded to all the events of last Wednesday, characterized the protest as a First Amendment rights march. That's how they described it on the Department of Defense memorandum. A First Amendment rights march. These people weren't marching to defend the First Amendment. They were marching to rig the outcome of an election. And one of the many revelations of the weekend has been, you know, this further understanding that 25 people are now facing charges of domestic terrorism relating to what happened at the Capitol building last Wednesday. We're now beginning to understand that the Capitol Police Force may have had some sympathizers of Donald Trump on duty there when the protesters arrived, egging them on and allowing them to come into the building. There are reports that the Fire Department of New York and the FBI warned the Capitol Hill police that they were concerned about the violence that was likely to take place, and that some members of the Fire Department of New York participated in this riot. There's huge questions here about the extent to which these conspiracy theorists who support Donald Trump, actually, some of them have jobs in law enforcement and a part and parcel of America's intelligence infrastructure. That's going to be a massive problem for Joe Biden to have to deal with, given that his own safety is at risk. Also, the safety of Mike Pence. You talked about Lindsey Graham. We talked about him the other night being hounded through the airport. Mike Pence, as vice president, does not automatically receive Secret Service protection for the rest of his life when he leaves office. These people went to Capitol Hill saying they wanted to execute him. They had handcuffs. They were looking for him.
Well, they strung up a noose, didn't they?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Simon, but America seems to have completely lost its mind.
Totally unmoored. I mean, I've been saying this for weeks. I've been saying it from the moment Donald Trump arrived. There was never any doubt that this was going to end in some kind of upset. It was never going to end normally. It is a country dangerously unmoored from its constitutional underpinnings. And the job of a lifetime for Joe Biden is, and for successive presidents, because you're not going to do this in one presidency, is going to be to see whether you can glue America back to its constitutional moorings, or whether this is just, I think you described it last night, didn't you, as the amuse-bouche for what may be coming further down the line.
Yeah, the thing that's, I mean, time's ticking away, I'm going to have to go, but it's always so entertaining talking to you. The thing that just blows my mind is that all this happened because of a clown, a serially unsuccessful clown off the telly, that he did this. And what is going to happen next, I suspect, is that a much more softly spoken, family-friendly person is going to come along, espousing the same sort of ideas, but in a softer voice, and he or she will be the real danger. Just finally, I can't be alone in thinking, in missing Donald Trump from Twitter. I mean, I have on many occasions of the last couple of days been thinking, I wonder what Donald Trump would be writing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I haven't known what to do with myself all weekend. I mean, the upside is that journalists in Washington are finally getting some sleep because no one has to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning anymore and glance at the phone just to see what's been going on. Look, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Donald Trump being cut off from communication. Hilariously, we had one Republican congressman on television today, on national television today, claiming that Republicans can no longer communicate with the American public.
Right, because
on national television.
That's right.
But, you know, if Donald Trump's got something to say, if he's got something to say, he can walk into the White House briefing room any time.
Right,
the network reporters would love to see him.
Yeah, they would. All right, good to talk to you as always, Simon. That's Simon Marks, LBC's US correspondent in Washington, D.C.
The one thing I found fascinating about what we're listening there was when he talked about Mike Pence and the invoking of the 25th Amendment. I was astounded when he said he's not in favour of it. I thought, what? This guy has been incessantly loyal to Trump. And when it came to asking him to do something that he cannot do, he threw him to the mob. While they were storming that building, he was smiling. And in a tent, while all his cronies were dancing away, having fun. I found that astounding. And all this ridiculousness about waiting 100 days for a trial. And there's even a third option. For me, the censorship of Trump, that sounds a little bit like a bit of a slap on the wrist. Hang on here a minute. This guy tried to enforce a coup, and I find that astounding that he just doesn't want to do anything. Wow, Trump's like that hungry crocodile. You throw a scrap of meat, the more you throw, the more it wants, and I just deal with it. And Nick's right, you know, you don't do anything to this guy, he will turn around and bite you on the backside. And this nonsense about we need to bring the country together. Let's be honest, this country's more divided than ever by the looks of it. I was reading an article from a guy who tweeted that this would happen in December. He tweeted in December that he thought this would happen. How did he know? Because he was down the rabbit hole of places like QAnon and other places. And he was watching what these people were talking about. And they were out to get Mike Pence. They were going to string him up by his bunch of browns. And they believed that when he told them to go there, that they were there to do a job for him. And this Rye Blunt guy talking about, well, he's touched the hot stove rubbish. People like Trump don't care about consequences. He only cares about himself. And I've got to laugh about that drivel about turning up at a small town 200 miles of the Alamo. That just sums up the last 4 years with Trump. Absolutely hilarious. And you get this Republican Party acting like... You've seen the film Police Squad? And where Frank Drebin is stood in front of that burning building, explosions hailing in his air, shouting, move on, nothing to see here." Really? This Bay mob that he gaslit stormed that building, and they were going to get a lot of them and just carry on as normal. God, as Nick says, never a dull moment in politics now. Absolutely ridiculous. And these people I feel so sorry for, because they think that he cares about them so much. No, he doesn't. Like, I saw a tweet from, is it Kirsty Trump or one of the others? I can't. No, I think it were on Parler before it was taken down. I saw something on the lines where showed a picture of that girl who was shot in the neck, where she accused her of being Antifa secret agent, and you cannot fake patriotism. But apparently when you look at her feed on her social media, she was a die-in-the-wool Trump supporter. And you just throw her, shows you how much they really care. And this idea he's a president of law and order had to be browbeaten into doing the flags at half-mast for them two coppers. President of law and order, may I? I'm just flabbergasted. But anyway, what do you guys think? I'll leave the video here, and I shall bid you farewell until the next time. Take care.